The Green Bay Packers paid Jordan Love at the top of the market. Now, they're not going to have any money for anything else, right? Wrong.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. The playoffs are in our rear view, and the sports aren't sporting the way we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking you up all summer long with boosts and bonuses daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Immediately after the Packers signed Jordan Love to a 4-year, $220 million extension. We talked about it on Friday Night Live as it happened. Go check that out if you haven't listened. As soon as it happened, critics, Bears fans, Vikings fans, 49er fans, people on the internet got in their feelings about it. Well, the Packers aren't going to be able to pay anyone else anymore now that they're paying Jordan Love all this money. Except that's just not true. And it's not true because the second part's not true. Not because the first part I'm just arbitrarily deciding is not true. They're not paying Jordan Love that much money on the salary cap, which is the only place it actually matters. It doesn't matter that they're giving Jordan Love $75 million just to put his name on the contract. That doesn't matter, or it matters a little less, well, a lot less, a little every year, because that's how the mafia accounting works in the NFL. They can take that $75 million and spread it out over the life of the contract. And we found out they added a void year into this deal, so it can be spread out even further. Jordan Love, his cap hit this year is under $21 million, $20.7 million. The cap hit this year in terms of quarterback expenditures has actually gone down relative to last year when they were the youngest playoff team to ever win in the postseason. The youngest team in the league last year. They won a postseason game with $40 million tied to a quarterback rehabbing an Achilles injury, playing for another team. The Packers had to eat that Aaron Rodgers dead cap last year, and they were able to put together a playoff caliber team because they are a draft and develop franchise at their core. This is what they want to do. This is who they want to be. And knowing that they were going to have to extend Kenny Clark and knowing that they were going to have to extend Jordan Love, they still went out and signed Xavier McKinney and signed Josh Jacobs. Yes, there are outgoing players, Darnell Savage, Josh Nijman, Aaron Jones, of course. But they brought in players to replace them. We'll see if those players are better. I expect, certainly in the case of Xavier McKinney, for him to be better than Darnell Savage. We'll see about the running back replacement. We'll see about Jordan Morgan. More on Jordan Morgan coming a little bit later. But this is not a unique set of circumstances for the Green Bay Packers. And it doesn't. Brian Gutekunst was honest about it. He said this basically does not affect us for 3 years. And if you look at the cap hits, he's right. In fact, it's not until the last year of this extension where the number gets out of control. $70 million in the final year, which is done solely to goose The total value, so that when they say AAV, 55, you hear $55 million annually and you go, well, wow. But that's an average based on a total. 75 of that was paid up front. It's not in base salary anywhere. There is only 1 year on this contract where Jordan Love's cap impact will even be $45 million as of this moment. And that's the last year. And that's a year that he will not see with a cap hit over $70 million. They will renegotiate the deal in 3 years. That deal will be wiped away, and that money will be put into a new set of parameters that will be, a gazillion dollars, because that's where the market is going. That's where the salary cap is going. And just to give you a real world example, just to really drive home that this can be done. I know it can be done because the Packers did it in 2018. Aaron Rodgers signed the largest quarterback contract, the largest contract ever signed in the NFL. Less than a year later, we're talking about 8 months later, Brian Gutekunst went out and spent money like a teenager with a trust fund. Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, Billy Turner, Adrian Amos, and they went on to have 3 straight 13-win seasons, 2 consecutive NFC Championship games, 2 straight number 1 overall seeds in the NFC. And yes, Aaron Rodgers played at an MVP level in 2 of those years. And that was a big reason why. But you're paying Jordan Love to be the kind of quarterback who can compete for MVPs. And in the second half of last year, played at an MVP pace. I've used this stat before, but if you look at the second half of the season, 8 games with that touchdown to interception ratio, in a first-year starter scenario, only 2 players in modern history have ever done it in any 8-game stretch in their first year. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. MVPs. It was an MVP caliber half of the season. It was not an accident. So the question of how could they pay him? Because guys who perform the way that he did are not flukes. They don't grow on trees. Except in Green Bay, where they know how to handle these circumstances. Yes, the Packers are going to have to draft well. And yes, in a year, in 2 years, they're going to have decisions to make on players who are going to be a part of their core. But it is not going to be materially different than if they were paying Jordan Love the Baker Mayfield contract. And by the way, in 2026, just to give you an idea, 2026, 3 years from now, Jordan Love's cap hit will be the 16th highest in the NFL. 16th. Now, that's right now. That's before extensions are probably going to come. Josh Allen probably will get a new deal soon. Dak Prescott, we know, is going to get a new deal. Brock Purdy's got to get a new deal. In all likelihood, those numbers, they're going to be more guaranteed money in 2026. And this was the bargain that Jordan Love's agents and the Packers struck. In exchange for a shorter deal, the Packers were able to negotiate a lower value with less guarantees. And if you're going to bet on yourself, you just say, that's fine, because in 3 years, we're going to renegotiate this deal anyway. You're going to end up paying me more, and everyone's going to be happy. Really good quarterbacks do not make their team regret paying them at the top of the market. And this contract, because it will never be $55 million AAV and will not even be close. The next 2 years, it will be half that, less. The window is bigger than you think. The cost is lower than you think. This is not a big deal at all. This is a great deal for the Packers. It's a lot of money up front, but guess what? It's not your money. So who cares? It's the kind of deal that, yes, if they have to get out of it in 2 years for any reason, it will hurt. But that's true of any big contract. The upside, what you're getting if this works, is a steal. If Jordan Love is just the guy we saw last year in the aggregate, remember, he was so good in the second half that overall he was a top 5 by efficiency quarterback last year, 6th in DVOA, 6th in DYAR, top 5 in dropback EPA per play. For the season, not just the second half, for the season. That's the kind of guy you pay. And paying him is not going to negatively impact the Packers' ability to put a quality team around him. In a couple of years, in a year, they're going to have to decide, okay, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, what are you? And what are you in relation to Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks? Well, that was going to happen anyway. Because if one of those guys wants their own team, they're going to leave, irrespective of Jordan Love. And the Packers were never going to pay, or are unlikely going to pay, all 4 of those guys long-term contracts anyway. It's just the nature of team building. Because those guys are going to want to get paid like starters, and the Packers are going to go, well, you're not really for us. So they're going to go somewhere where someone's going to overpay them to start. And that's how the Packers have operated from time immemorial. And guess what? They rarely let really, really good players leave. And they've been dealing with this big money quarterback contract for 30 years. If anyone knows how to do this, it's Green Bay. I want to address the elephant in the room, though, that all of these quarterbacks lately who've been getting paid have proven nothing. Really. That's next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs are in our rear view, we're almost looking forward to baseball playoffs at this point. We get fewer games, no NBA action with the Olympics, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to, at least not the games that we know and love. The Olympics are great. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And let's be honest, I'm in the mood plenty. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Are you watching Fox Sports on your TV all day? What about ESPN? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Rich Eisen had a tweet, and I've seen a couple different versions of a similar tweet. The new top 8 annually paid QBs in the NFL: Jordan Love, $55 million, Trevor Lawrence, $55 million, Joe Burrow, $55 million, Tua, $53.1 million, Goff, $53 million, Herbert, $52.5 million, Lamar, $52 million, Jalen Hurts, $51 million. Combined playoff records, 16 and 17. Combined Super Bowls, 3. Combined Super Bowl wins, 0. And Rich adds, paying and hoping. Now, if the bar is going to be Super Bowls in a world where Patrick Mahomes exists, you've already lost me a little bit. A little bit. Like the truly, truly great players, I understand it. And Aaron Rodgers, if you played his career 10 times, 1 is probably the fewest possible number of Super Bowls that he could have won. And I would say the same is probably true for Brett Favre. And that's what happened. But these are all guys who have only been in the league, with the exception of Jared Goff, in a Patrick Mahomes era. Patrick Mahomes has 3 Super Bowl wins since he became the full-time starter. The only other quarterbacks whose teams have won, Tom Brady, maybe you've heard of him, and Matthew Stafford with Sean McVay. That's it. That's it. Lamar Jackson's been MVP twice. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl and got outdueled by Matthew Stafford. If his defense gets to stop at the end, who knows? Maybe he's the one with the ring. And we're not going, paying and hoping. Jalen Hurts went to a Super Bowl. Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl. Now, I do think it's fair to wonder if all of these contracts were smartly handed out. I would not have paid Tua $53.1 million. I would not have paid Jared Goff $53 million. And I would not have paid Jalen Hurts $51 million. I think three of these things are not like the other. They are bus riders, not bus drivers. And that is the difference. Now, I've said, what is the alternative? Well, in the case of the Eagles, Jalen Hurts kind of was the alternative. They had Wentz. Hurts became the alternative, and they felt obligated to pay him off of a season where he had everything going for him. All of the best coordinators. Shane Steichen looks like is an absolute dude. A loaded roster and a very easy schedule. And of course, they won a bunch of games and they got really lucky in the NFC Championship game. Like if Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt in that NFC Championship game, I wonder if Jalen Hurts gets the bag. I really do. If Ben Johnson leaves to take the Washington job this offseason, do they pay Jared Goff $53 million? Is Jared Goff worth $53 million? I would say no. Now, it is true that Justin Herbert has not had playoff success. Does anyone watch the Chargers and think, man, this team would be a lot better if Justin Herbert were better? No. You have eyes. You can watch the rest of the team now. You can certainly watch the Dolphins and go, are there other quarterbacks that could get productivity out of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert and a Mike McDaniel offense? Oh, hell yeah. There are a lot of quarterbacks that I think could do that. I think there are a lot of quarterbacks, not a lot, but more than the one and more than just this group of 8. I think you could take a middling quarterback, drop him into Miami, and they could produce pert near close to what Tua is doing, if not what Tua is doing. I think the same is true of Jared Goff, and I think the same is true of Jalen Hurts. And Eagles fans got mad when I suggested Jordan Love was playing better than Jalen Hurts. And by the end of the season, it was like, there was no question he was playing better than Jalen Hurts. I don't like this idea that we have to say your value, especially after 2 years, 3 years as starters. These are 2020 draft class quarterbacks. Tua, Jalen, Love, Herbert, Burrow. Trevor Lawrence is 21 draft class. And we're complaining he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. Have you seen what is going on in Jacksonville? Like, I think his play the last 2 years has been a little overrated. A little overrated because he still has these mind-numbing interceptions. Like, I understand the criticisms there, but we're talking about a supremely talented quarterback whose entire career, like the defining element of his career is the turmoil around him, not him. It's been everyone else. Like, he is the quarterback that everyone said Justin Fields was. Oh, it's everyone else's fault. No, that's Trevor Lawrence, where it is actually everyone else's fault, where you can have a cut up of like half a dozen dimes that Trevor Lawrence threw that are dropped in the end zone, where guys can't toe tap, where they can't gain possession before getting out of bounds. That's that circumstance, not Justin Fields. It's unfair for that to be the standard for this group when a team like the Packers, even last year, they were ahead of schedule because of Jordan Love. Trevor Lawrence went toe to toe with Justin Herbert and won a playoff game in incredible fashion. That doesn't count. We don't get to count that. Like, come on. It's just foolishness. Now, I do think teams get themselves in trouble convincing themselves that okay, we have to pay them. Well, no, you don't. Like, if you have reservations, you don't. I would not have paid Tua this money. I would have rather see if I could convince Baker to come over for 2 or 3 million more. Like if I could save 8 million APY over 4 or 5 years, I think I would do that. The Geno Smith deal is immaculate for the Seahawks. The Bucs are in really good position because of having Baker Mayfield. I think these upper middle class quarterback contracts, they might be the new market inefficiency because teams are going to pay guys who are not worthy of it. No one thinks Tua and Joe Burrow are in the same tier, but Tua is getting less than $2 million different average annual value. That doesn't make sense. So from that standpoint, I understand it. But especially because this is such a young group, can we please let them play? Please let them play. Speaking of let them play, we're going to go off the Jordan Love board here and talk about the offensive line. Where are they going to play? That's next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So with killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. You do not want to have to worry about anything when it comes to tickets. So save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of it when you can get views from your seats and all-in pricing that gives you everything you need to know before you get your tickets. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today, last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. I want to talk about the offensive line because I have been of the opinion that the best five for the Packers, left to right, Rasheed Walker, left tackle, Jordan Morgan, left guard, Elton Jenkins at center, Sean Ryan at right guard, Zach Tom at right tackle. But with Tom out, dealing with the torn pectoral, he's back doing some work, but is not going to do 11 on 11 for a little while. Jenkins has been getting some rest days, and Josh Myers missed a couple days with personal time. There's been some shuffling, and LaFleur sold that as, well, Jenkins was just filling in for Myers while he was out. Sean Ryan took a couple reps. But what's interesting, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is you'd like to have a little bit of a better handle on how this was all going to look, frankly. But when Elton Jenkins was going to play center, Sean Ryan was going from right guard to left guard. Though when it's all five, when everyone's there, he was playing right guard. And then Jordan Morgan was playing his right guard position. Now, this may be the simplest explanation is Jordan Morgan is guard 3 right now. And Matt LaFleur said Jordan Morgan is more comfortable inside, which confirms what I said personally all along. And Brian Gutekunst insisted on saying, we think he's a tackle. Matt LaFleur said he will start a tackle. He did. And almost immediately they moved him inside to guard, which has always been his best position. He is a guard that they think can play tackle, not a tackle that they're going to try guard first. I think we're there. Now, that doesn't mean he can't play tackle and be a good one. Elton Jenkins was not drafted to be a tackle, but looked like he had a chance to play it and was going to get a chance to do it and then did it while he was hurt. And I think that scuttled his chance to ever play tackle in the league. But I guess I don't understand this methodology. Unless it is just the case that Jordan Morgan is guard 3. And that may be where we are, where if Josh Myers is healthy, he's going to be the center. It seems like that's where we're headed. Now, another reason, another fringe benefit of moving Sean Ryan to left guard when you're moving Elton Jenkins to center in practice is you get to see Jordan Morgan at right guard, where he is theoretically competing with Sean Ryan for that right guard spot. We know he's not competing with Elton Jenkins for that left guard spot. So why not, if he's going to play guard, not play him on the right side where there's actually a job to be won, like as a competition? I've said before, if they want Elton Jenkins to play center, he will just play center. Like, there is no competition with Josh Myers. He's a better player than Josh Myers. Anywhere you put him, he's better than Josh Myers. But we may be projecting too much. And I mean that in both senses of the word. Like, our own desires to not see Josh Myers on the field anymore and predicting too much. The Packers have always liked Josh Myers in their building more than we have. And so I think it could be also the case that Sean Ryan, left tackle at UCLA, playing on the right side in the pros, maybe that's not the adjustment. I thought that might be the case with Jordan Morgan. Okay, play him at left guard because, you know, he was a left tackle only at Arizona. And so let's just ease him in. You know, get it, footwork, all that stuff. It seems like it could be that it's Sean Ryan who they're going to give that chance to, or they view Sean Ryan as the second guard. They view left guard as a more important position, and therefore, when Elton Jenkins isn't playing it, they're moving Ryan. Are you following the queen on this one? Like, this is like a little bit like follow the lady, the old card trick. And I understand that. The biggest reason I'm bringing it up, number one, is Jordan Morgan's a first-round pick. And so I don't want to litigate if he's a guard, then the process stuff. Like, I don't really want to litigate that. I'm not interested in that right now. We'll talk about it later. If Jordan Morgan's a good player, no one's going to care. But you'd like to know, when training camp opens, you'd like to have some semblance of an idea of who your best five is going to be. And it's not the injury to Zach Tom that is preventing the Packers from finding out. It is, Josh Myers in and out. You're giving Elton Jenkins rest. And maybe they know. Maybe they have an idea. And they're like, look, you're making this too complicated. It's going to be Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Ryan, Zach Tom right away. And that's it. And then Jordan Morgan can be your backup guard. He can be your backup tackle. Who knows? Maybe Zach Tom's not ready for the regular season. You got someone who can play right tackle. Or you have some other injury. And Jordan Morgan is your all-star swing piece in year one. The Packers are not afraid of doing that. Rashawn Gary, they knew when they drafted him, he was not going to start. They knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like when the Packers drafted Jordan Morgan, I think they could make a reasonable case like, hey, this guy has a chance to start for us at, any number of positions, we think. So we'll see how it all shakes out in camp. And then if he doesn't, he doesn't. But Josh Myers is coming up in a year, probably not going to re-sign him. So you need to have solutions there. You can slide Elton Jenkins in, Jordan Morgan, and maybe that's the second year plan. I think the training camp, when everyone is there, pay very close attention to how they're lining up. In the preseason, it's going to be tough because you're not going to see the starters out there, I think, with regularity. So who's playing deep into the game? And also, I'm sorry to say, the Packers do not have my benefit of the doubt on this because they've screwed this up before. And I'm sorry to keep harping on that, but any number of times going into multiple playoffs, I felt like they did not have the right configuration of the offensive line, and it cost them. You go back to 2022, they opened the season against Minnesota, and Zach Tom played superlative football in the preseason. I don't think he allowed a pressure in preseason. Played the most amount of snaps of anyone who didn't allow a pressure in that preseason, if I recall correctly, per Pro Football Focus. And then you trot out week one on the road, Royce Newman playing out of position, and Evan Hansen. It might as well have been dear Evan Hansen out there. Jake Hansen was playing guard, but it might as well have been Evan Hansen because Jake Hansen was terrible. So we cannot trust intrinsically, intuitively, a priori. We can't just say whatever the Packers are going to do before sight unseen, we just trust it. No, we can't do that because they've gotten this wrong before. So this is just something I want to keep an eye on. I'm not suggesting that it's wrong already, but I'm not ready to say just because it shakes out a certain way at the end of camp that that's the best group. The Packers, I credit them for they're always tinkering and searching and willing to be like, well, we'll do a platoon here. Like that is unique to them in the league. I don't know any other team that is like every year basically, and Matt LaFleur's been there. Someone has been doing that. And they're willing to do it at the offensive line, which is crazy because continuity is so key, but they're able to make it work. So they do deserve that benefit of the doubt. And we know they know how to ID talent. So back tomorrow, Diana Rossini is going to walk us through the Jordan Love deal, how it came together, all that stuff. Aaron Schatz later in the week from Football Outsiders. So a ton to get to as we move through training camp. Jordan Love in the fold. Brian Gutekunst put the capper on a terrific offseason. And we move to the regular season pretty soon. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us, like we were live on Friday night after the Jordan Love news. We're going to be live after preseason games, so you can stay Locked On Packers.